Welcome to Natural Born Talents. In today's subject, we are going to look at the education system in 3 different countries. In part 1, I looked at the various auras and how each aura has a way of thinking or learning. In this video, as we look at the 3 different kinds of education within each country, we are going to look on how some personality types or some ways of learning don't fit those education systems, and we're going to look on how to get around them. But first, we're going to look at the various education systems within these 3 countries. Now, the first country we're going to look at is Japan. It's not only that I've had extensive experience in this country, but I've noticed that a lot of people think that the Japanese education system is a good system. I will tell you, it is not. That doesn't mean there aren't good things within the country worth exploring. There certainly are. But there's too many dark sides of Japan, especially within the education system, that rarely gets exposed. And I'd like to go through this not to bash Japan per se, but just to show that there is actually a better way to teach children, particularly children, education without being it so grueling and abusive or boringly lockstep. Now, other cultures have done this too. The Catholics used to do this to their students as well. So this is not just to single out Japan. It's that Japan believes that the way that they're doing education is actually better than other countries, when in fact it is quite the opposite, and I'll show you why as we go along. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce several words that are Japanese in order to explain why the education system is the way it is. The first word is juku. Juku means a cram school, or not a preparatory school as much as a yobigaku is a preparatory school. A juku is a cram school, and there are various famous companies that use children in their little cult-like environments to indoctrinate them in order to pass tests within the state-run education system, as opposed to really learning something, and I'll get into more of that later. The second word is hikikomori. Hikikomori means the child that drops out of the system and pretty much lives at home with their parents well into the 30s, 40s, or even 50s, just doing their hobbies. Another word is ijime, which of course in the United States and other countries as well is bullying. And Japan is not the only country that does this, but it is quite common in most of the schools. The next word is jisatsu, which of course means to end your life. And this is another problem under the education system here in Japan. When things get too rough and too overly disciplinary, give up and end their lives. And I'll get to more on that later. And of course, I have to be careful on YouTube on what words that I use, so please bear that in mind. They have some techniques that are very useful, but on the other hand are also very psychologically destructive. Things like kumon and some of these other techniques that they use actually cause a lot of social problems within the country, mostly because underperforming students are falling behind and spending all their times within the juku and have no time to socialize appropriately, which basically led the idea that the students within the education system fall into 3 groups. 1 was the kids that could do it, 2 was the kids that sort of could do it, and 3 were the kids who couldn't do it or didn't want to do it. Now, this was all created by the lockstep system of the Japanese education system, which was heavily influenced from originally the British education system, but later the American system after the war, but still kept some of its militant style that really could be traced way back to the Meiji Inshin, or Meiji Restoration period. Now, this seems to be all by design. The education system really runs rawshod over the children who are more sensitive and don't learn the way lockstep people do. But what makes things much worse are the parents. The parents drop the kids off to school expecting the school to do everything. and I mean everything. It's gotten to the point where if the child doesn't come out the way the parents expect them to, they don't blame themselves, they blame the school. And I've worked with a lot of dedicated teachers, but the problem with this system is that if you don't have discipline, love, play, and all the things a child needs at home, when they get to the school, they become very difficult to teach. And this is largely because the child has no sense of what they want to be or what they need to learn in order to make it in life. In other words, the parents are not trained, and I just heard this the other day, and I find this to be quite accurate from one of the teachers that I worked with, is that the parents are not trained to teach their children or to raise their children for the future. So when the child doesn't perform well, what do the parents do? They put them in a juku. The juku runs roughshod over the psychological needs of a child who needs love, play, discipline, all balanced out. But the juku just crams all this stuff in them to indoctrinate them to memorize to pass tests. And the child ends up being this lifeless robot that can barely get along in life and end up being what is known as the hikikomori, which I mentioned earlier, or they end their lives. In some cases, it's so bad, I often wonder if that's by design. In other words, the education system wants only the toughest and the strongest and most intelligent, and the rest, well, good luck. Now, since the pandemic, things have gotten much worse. Children don't want to participate as much as they used to. They are less disciplined. They are less loved by their parents. And part of this has to do with the economic system that has evolved in Japan. Both parents have to work now. Because of this, they don't have anyone disciplining their child at home. So they send them off to jukus or they send them off to preparatory schools while they are at work. It's gotten so expensive in Japan to raise a child that most people opt not to. And this is causing a demographic problem in Japan. The population is dropping below its needs to stay competitive. But the competitive environment of the education system makes it very difficult for the more sensitive children to participate in. So to recap, the main issue in Japan is the competitiveness of education. It's all about memorization to pass tests. It's not about educating or learning. It's all about those who can follow the rules and those who cannot. And when teachers try to discipline the child because they're really unruly, the parents get upset and make all kinds of claims, and then the school gets in trouble, and you can see where this is going. All the headaches of a state-run education system. It has been often said that the parents today are children who are trying to raise children. There are some things in Japan that I've seen parents do to their children in order to get them into a school like Todai, which would be the equivalent of Harvard University in the United States. And it's so barbaric, I can't even mention it on this video. Let's just say it goes into the realms of abuse. It used to be in the early Showa era, just after the war. Education was kind of fun. A lot of the students I had taught as they got older told me that in their childhood, after school, they went to the park, played in the park, did their homework, and then went home. But now, because it's become so competitive, children are going to these cram schools, and because the cram schools are so abusive, most are dropping out or ending their lives, or joining motorcycle gangs. With both parents working, who could blame them? There are very dedicated teachers in Japan. They are very concerned on the way things are going. They've all pointed out since the pandemic, things have gotten much worse. And of course, there are very caring parents about their children. It's just that because of technology, it's easier for the parents to give the child a computer game as opposed to taking the efforts in helping them with their education. Again, there are some really good things in Japan that are very nice to see and to have within the education system, but unfortunately those are becoming less and less important, largely because they're being overshadowed by the problems I just mentioned. It's funny how the education system now really just prepares for tests as opposed to training them for the needs of life. Employers of companies have often mentioned to me that they can't do anything with these children because they don't know anything except how to work a smartphone. Beyond that, they really have memorized a lot of information that doesn't really apply to the real world. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be this way. I have noticed that teaching through play, you can learn the same thing but have a good time doing it. On top of that, you learn social skills and other skills that you will need throughout your life. Well, that's pretty much it for Japan. In the next video, I'll be exploring a little bit about Finland and the United States. After we explore those two countries, we'll be looking in how to raise your child or how to educate yourself around the lockstep system within these three countries, particularly Japan, the United States, and Finland in that order. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Please, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And thanks again for watching.